He stayed over because he was too drunk. Stop acting like a jealous teenager. It's pathetic, she said dismissively. Maybe if you weren't so boring and paranoid, you'd understand how adult relationships work. I nodded and said, I trust you completely, then showed her the security footage. She lost it before the video started. Some details have been changed for obvious reasons, but the core story is 100% real. I've been lurking on this sub for years, but never thought I'd have a story worth posting. Well, here we are. Grab some popcorn because this gets absolutely wild. Quick background. I'm a 35-year-old guy who owns a small electrical contracting business in Ohio. Nothing glamorous. Residential wiring, panel upgrades, some light commercial stuff. Built the business from scratch over the past 5 years after doing my apprenticeship and working for other contractors for about 10 years. Military background, Army, got out as an E5, which taught me the discipline and attention to detail that serves me well in the trades. This story involves my ex-girlfriend Jessica, not her real name, her affair partner Brad, also fake name, and how security cameras I installed to keep her safe ended up exposing the most elaborate manipulation scheme I've ever encountered. TLDR at the bottom, but seriously, you need the full story to believe this madness. Let me paint you a picture of where I come from. Growing up working class in a Rust Belt town, Dad worked the factory, Mom cleaned houses. They hammered into me that you work hard, save your money, and build something for yourself. No handouts, no shortcuts, just honest work and determination. After the military, I went straight into electrical work because it's solid money and there's always demand. Spent years learning the trade, getting my licenses, building relationships with contractors and suppliers. Finally saved up enough to start my own business 5 years ago. By the time this story starts, things were going really well. I had a solid client base, 2 part-time helpers, and was clearing about $85,000 a year. Not rich by any means, but comfortable. I'd bought a small house in a decent neighborhood and was actually thinking about expanding the business, maybe getting a proper shop space instead of working out of my garage. Then I met Jessica. This was 2.5 years ago at my cousin Mike's wedding. Mike's one of those guys who knows everyone, and he was determined to introduce me to every single woman at the reception. Most of the conversations were polite, but went nowhere. Turns out electricians aren't exactly magnetic to the corporate crowd. But then Mike dragged me over to this table where Jessica was sitting. First thing I noticed was how she looked completely out of place at a working-class wedding. Designer dress, perfect makeup, nails that probably cost more than I spend on groceries in a week. She was a friend of the bride from college, worked as a real estate agent for one of those high-end firms downtown that sells houses I could never afford. When Mike introduced us and mentioned what I did for work, I expected the usual polite smile and quick subject change. Instead, her whole face lit up. An electrician? That's amazing. You must be so good with your hands, she said, and I swear she actually batted her eyelashes. I'm always dealing with electrical issues on my listings. It's so impressive that you own your own business. Now, I'm not stupid. I know when someone's laying it on thick. But I'd been single for 2 years after a pretty messy breakup with my ex-fiancé, and here's this gorgeous woman acting like I'm the most interesting guy in the room. Jessica was the kind of beautiful that makes you forget your own name. Blonde hair that looked like it belonged in a shampoo commercial, green eyes, the kind of smile that probably got her out of speeding tickets. We talked for the rest of the reception. She asked all the right questions about my business, seemed genuinely interested in my military background, laughed at my terrible jokes. When she gave me her number at the end of the night, I felt like I'd won the lottery. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into spending weekends together. Jessica was unlike anyone I'd ever dated. She had expensive taste in everything, drove a brand new BMW, lived in a downtown apartment that probably cost more per month than my mortgage, always had the latest iPhone and designer handbags. I'm practical with money. I drive a 2018 F-150 that I bought used with cash. I shop at Costco in bulk. When something breaks, I fix it instead of replacing it. We came from completely different worlds. But Jessica made it seem like that was what she loved about me. She'd call me her blue-collar king and talk about how refreshing it was to date a real man who worked with his hands. Said she was tired of dating corporate guys who were all talk and no substance. You build things, Danny, she'd say. You create something tangible every day. These finance bros I used to date just move numbers around on spreadsheets. Looking back, I can see exactly how she was playing me from day one. But at the time, it felt like I'd found someone who actually appreciated what I did for a living, instead of seeing it as something to tolerate. 6 months in, we were official. By our first anniversary, she was practically living at my place, though she kept her downtown apartment for work purposes. Said she needed to be available for evening showings and weekend open houses. Jessica had a way of making suggestions that felt like support, but pushed me toward bigger risks. She'd look at my client list and say things like, "You're undercharging for this quality of work. These people are getting a steal." Or, "You should really think about expanding. You're leaving money on the table." Some of her advice was actually good. I did raise my rates and started focusing more on higher-end residential work. But she also pushed me to take on bigger jobs that stretched my cash flow, encouraging me to use credit lines for materials and equipment. "You have to spend money to make money," she'd say. "Stop being so conservative." I trusted her judgment because she worked in sales and seemed to understand business better than I did. Plus, she started sending me referrals. People buying expensive houses who needed electrical upgrades, whole house surge protection, fancy lighting installations. I probably made an extra $15,000 that year just from her connections. Everything seemed perfect. Too perfect. About 8 months into dating, Jessica started mentioning how unsafe she felt in her downtown apartment. The building was nice, but she'd come home with stories about weird encounters in the parking garage, suspicious people hanging around the lobby, packages getting stolen. "I just don't feel secure living alone," she'd say, especially with my work schedule. "I'm showing houses until late sometimes, and coming home to an empty apartment just feels scary." As an electrician, I knew enough about security systems to wire them properly and understand how they worked. When she mentioned feeling unsafe, my first instinct was to help. "You should let me install some cameras and better locks," I offered. "I know a guy who does security systems. Could get you a good deal on the equipment." Her reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. "Would you really do that for me? That would make me feel so much safer. You're amazing for even thinking of it." So I reached out to my buddy Tom, who runs a security installation business. We went to trade school together, and he's always been solid about giving me cost pricing on equipment. I explained the situation, and he hooked me up with everything we needed. The setup I planned was comprehensive but not excessive. Doorbell camera with two-way audio, 3 interior cameras covering the main living areas, living room, kitchen, and hallway, smart locks on both the front door and sliding patio door, and a central control system that would send alerts to our phones. I spent an entire weekend installing everything myself, running cable through walls, mounting cameras, programming the system, testing every component. It was probably $2,800 worth of equipment and labor if she'd hired it done professionally, but I did it as a gift because I cared about her safety. Jessica was over the moon about the whole thing. She posted pictures on Instagram showing off her upgraded apartment, talking about how her amazing boyfriend had made her feel so much safer. All her friends were commenting about how lucky she was, what a keeper I was. But here's where I made what would turn out to be a crucial decision. When I was setting up the access controls, Jessica insisted that I keep admin credentials to the system. "What if something goes wrong and I can't figure out how to fix it?" she said. "Technology isn't really my strong suit. I'd feel better knowing you could help me troubleshoot any problems." It made sense at the time. I'd installed the system, so I should be able to service it. Plus, she specifically requested that I maintain access. I set up her phone with full admin control, but kept my own admin credentials active as backup. The cameras were motion activated and saved footage to cloud storage for 30 days. I made sure Jessica understood exactly how everything worked, how to access recordings, how to delete footage if she wanted, how to turn cameras on or off individually. We agreed that the system was purely for security and peace of mind, and it worked exactly as intended. The cameras caught a package thief once, recorded some college kids being rowdy in the hallway, normal apartment building stuff. Jessica would text me screenshots sometimes when she saw something interesting. A neighbor's new dog, delivery drivers being careless with packages, that sort of thing. We'd occasionally check footage together if she heard a strange noise or wanted to see who'd been at her door. It became this shared thing that made us both feel more connected and secure. For about 6 months, everything was great. Jessica seemed happier and more relaxed knowing she had the security system. She'd joke about feeling like she was living in a fortress, but in a good way. Then things started getting weird in ways I didn't recognize at the time. Jessica became increasingly interested in the details of my business. She'd ask about specific clients, wanted to know how much I charged for different types of jobs, questioned my pricing strategy. "I bet you could charge way more for some of this work," she'd say, looking over invoices. "Especially the custom installations. Rich people don't mind paying premium prices if they think they're getting premium service." She also started pushing me harder to expand faster. You need to hire more people, take on bigger projects. You're thinking too small. I appreciated her support, but some of her suggestions made me uncomfortable. She wanted me to take on jobs that would require significant upfront investment, projects that would strain my cash flow if anything went wrong. Sometimes you have to take risks to grow, she'd say when I expressed concerns. Playing it safe will keep you small forever. Looking back, I can see she was systematically pushing me toward financial vulnerability. But at the time, it felt like she believed in me more than I believed in myself. The referrals she sent my way were legitimate and profitable, which reinforced my trust in her business judgment. These were exactly the kind of high-end clients I wanted. People who paid on time and didn't nickel and dime every line item. I should have questioned why she suddenly had so many contacts who needed electrical work. I should have wondered why she was so interested in my client list and pricing. But when someone you love seems to be helping your business grow, you don't look for ulterior motives. Big mistake. Last October, I landed the biggest job of my career, rewiring an entire office building for a property management company in Columbus. It was a 3-week project that would net me about $28,000 profit, easily my largest single contract ever. The catch was the location. Columbus is about 2 hours from home, and the project timeline was tight enough that I'd need to stay there during the week to avoid losing time commuting. I'd come home on weekends, but Monday through Thursday, I'd be living in a hotel. When I told Jessica about the opportunity, she was incredibly supportive. "This is exactly the kind of job that'll take your business to the next level," she said. "I'm so proud of you for landing something this big." The work itself was challenging, but rewarding. Complex wiring in an older building, coordinating with other contractors, dealing with unexpected issues that required creative solutions. Long days, but the kind of work that reminded me why I loved the trade. Jessica and I talked every night while I was away. She'd tell me about her day, ask about the project, send cute texts throughout the day. Everything seemed normal. More than normal. She seemed extra affectionate and supportive. "I miss you so much," she'd text. "Can't wait until you're home for good." By Friday of the second week, I was exhausted. The work was going well, but I was putting in 12-hour days and living out of a hotel room was wearing on me. When I finished up Thursday afternoon and realized I was actually ahead of schedule, I decided to surprise Jessica by driving home that night instead of waiting until Friday evening. The drive home was brutal. 2 hours of highway in the dark after a long day of physical work. But I was excited to surprise her, maybe take her out for a nice dinner to celebrate the project going well. I texted her around 9 p.m. when I was about an hour out. "Surprise! Finished early, heading home now. Should be there around 10:30. No response, but that wasn't unusual. Jessica sometimes turned her phone off early when she had morning appointments. Real estate agents start early on Fridays to catch people before work. I used my key to let myself into her apartment quietly, not wanting to wake her if she was already asleep. The place was dark except for some candles burning in the living room, which seemed odd. Jessica wasn't really the candles and ambiance type. She was more of a bright lights and Netflix person. That's when I heard voices coming from the bedroom. Soft voices. Laughing. A man's voice I didn't recognize. My heart literally stopped beating for what felt like a full minute. I stood frozen in the entryway, bags still in my hands, trying to process what I was hearing. Then I heard Jessica's voice clear as day. "Danny's so clueless. He has no idea what's been going on." Male voice responding, "You sure he won't figure it out? The guy seems pretty sharp." Jessica laughed. Not her usual laugh, but something colder. "Please. He's a glorified construction worker. As long as I keep telling him how amazing and successful he is, he'll believe whatever I tell him." I felt like I was going to throw up right there in the hallway. The male voice again. "What if he finds out about us?" "That's what the pregnancy plan is for," Jessica replied, and my blood turned to ice. "Even if he gets suspicious, a baby will lock him down financially. Child support for 18 years, plus he'll probably marry me just to do the right thing. Then I get half of everything in the divorce." The guy laughed. "You're evil. I love it. Hey, I've done this before. My ex in Atlanta never knew what hit him. Men are so easy to manipulate when you make them feel like heroes." I stood there shaking, phone in my hand, and did the only thing my military training had taught me to do in crisis situations: gather intelligence. I started recording. For the next 10 minutes, I listened to them plan my destruction like they were discussing weekend plans. They talked about timeline, about how to make the fake pregnancy seem believable, about what they do with my half of everything after the divorce. I backed out of the apartment as quietly as I'd entered, went down to my truck, and just sat there in the parking lot for over an hour, listening to the recording over and over, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. Then, I drove to a 24-hour diner and started planning my response. Sitting in that diner at 1 a.m., surrounded by truckers and insomniacs, I realized I had access to something Jessica had completely forgotten about: the security cameras. The same cameras I'd installed to protect her were still linked to my phone. I'd never checked them remotely while I was away. That would have been a massive violation of trust and privacy. But now, after what I'd just heard, I had legitimate reason to look. I pulled up the security app on my phone with shaking hands and started scrolling through the most recent footage. What I found made my stomach drop through the floor. The front door camera showed a man leaving Jessica's apartment at 11:43 p.m. the previous night. I recognized him immediately. Brad, a guy from her real estate office. Mid-30s, always wore expensive suits. The kind of guy who thought his real estate license made him God's gift to women. Married with 2 kids, according to Jessica's previous stories about office drama. But that wasn't the worst part. The footage showed Jessica at the door in nothing but a robe, giving Brad a kiss goodbye that was definitely not professional courtesy. This was full-on, hands tangled in hair, just had sex kind of goodbye kiss. I scrolled back through more footage from that evening. Brad had arrived at 6:15 p.m. with an overnight bag and takeout dinner. The hallway camera caught them making out the second the door closed behind him. The living room camera, the one with audio, had recorded hours of them together. And because they felt completely safe and unobserved, they'd been talking freely about their plans. I found footage from 3 days earlier showing them cuddled together on the couch, Jessica's head on his shoulder, while they talked about their future. "Danny's been asking about moving in together," Jessica said in the recording. "Perfect timing with everything else we've got planned." "You really think the pregnancy angle will work?" Brad asked, stroking her hair. "It worked with Marcus in Atlanta. Guys like Danny want to do the right thing. Get a girl pregnant and they'll marry you out of obligation, even if they're starting to have doubts about the relationship." My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. There had been someone before me. This was a pattern. Another clip from a week earlier showed Jessica on the phone. "Hey Sarah, it's Jess. Yeah, I know I said Danny was the one last month, but honestly, I'm getting bored. No, I'm not breaking up with him yet. There's some stuff I need to secure first." She was planning our breakup while telling me she loved me every night on the phone. But the recording that nearly made me throw my phone across the diner was from 2 weeks ago. Jessica talking to someone on the phone. "No, I'm definitely pregnant. Yes, I'm sure it's his. No, I haven't told him yet. I'm waiting for the right moment." I know, the timing is perfect. Here's the thing that made this so sick. We'd been using protection every single time, without exception. I'm not careless about that stuff, especially with someone I wasn't ready to have kids with. Plus, Jessica had told me from the beginning that she was on birth control. So either she was lying to whoever she was talking to about being pregnant, or she was lying to me about the birth control and trying to actually trap me, or both. I spent the next 4 hours in that diner, downloading every piece of footage from the past 3 weeks onto my phone and laptop. Hours and hours of evidence showing their affair, their planning, their complete contempt for me and my feelings. By the time the sun came up, I had a complete picture of what had been happening while I was working my ass off in Columbus, thinking I was building a future for us. They'd been laughing at me the entire time. I went home to my own house and tried to get some sleep, but my mind was racing. Around noon, I drove back to Jessica's apartment. Her BMW was in its assigned spot, but Brad's car was gone. I sat in my truck for about 20 minutes, just staring at the building, trying to decide exactly how I wanted to handle this. Part of me wanted to just ghost her completely, pack up anything I had at her place and disappear forever. But another part of me, the part that had been systematically lied to and manipulated for months, wanted answers. More than that, I wanted to see just how deep the lies went. I used my key to let myself in. Jessica was in the kitchen making coffee, wearing one of my old army t-shirts like nothing had happened. When she saw me, her face lit up with that same beautiful smile that had hooked me 2 years ago. "Danny, you're home early." She came over for a hug, and I let her, even though it made my skin crawl. "I missed you so much. How did the project go?" "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice calm. Her smile faltered slightly. "Is everything okay? You seem tense. I heard voices when I came home last night. You had company." I watched her face carefully. There was a microsecond of panic. Then her expression shifted to something that looked like confusion, mixed with mild annoyance. "Oh, that. Yeah. Brad from the office stopped by to drop off some paperwork. He crashed at my place because he was a bit drunk and didn't want to drive. Don't be jealous." First lie. According to the cameras, Brad had been there for over 5 hours and left under his own power, looking perfectly healthy. I looked her straight in the eyes. I trust you. Good, she said, visibly relaxing. Because you know I would never do anything to hurt us. You're the most important thing in my life. Second lie. Let me just grab my laptop real quick, I said. I want to show you some pictures from the job site. I walked over to the couch, opened my laptop, and pulled up the security camera interface. I didn't start any videos yet. Just having the thumbnail preview screen visible was enough. Jessica went completely white, like all the blood just drained from her face in real time. Then she started screaming before I even touched the play button. You've been spying on me. What is wrong with you? That's a complete invasion of privacy. I wasn't spying, I said, keeping my voice level. I never looked at these cameras while I was away. I only checked last night because something felt off when I got home. Those cameras were for security, not for keeping tabs on me. You're right, they are for security. And they did their job. I turned the laptop toward her, showing a crystal clear image of her and Brad kissing by the front door. They let me know my girlfriend has been cheating on me with her coworker. She stared at the screen like she was seeing a ghost. You can't use those. That's invasion of privacy. Actually, I can. See, when I installed this system, you signed a consent form. Remember? You specifically requested that I maintain admin access in case you needed help. All documented, all legal. I pulled up another clip. The one of them cuddled on the couch talking about their plans. You've been planning to leave me while telling me you loved me. That's pretty messed up, Jess. Then I played the recording of her talking about the fake pregnancy and her previous victim in Atlanta. You've done this before. That guy Marcus, you trapped him with a fake pregnancy too? Jessica was backing away from me now, actually looking afraid for the first time since I'd known her. You can't prove any of that. I don't have to prove it. I just have to show these recordings to the right people. Your friends, your family. How do you think they'd feel knowing you're a serial manipulator who plans to trap men with fake pregnancies? They wouldn't believe you. They might not, but Brad's wife definitely would. That stopped her cold. All the fight went out of her at once. You wouldn't. Want to bet? I've got hours of footage of you two planning this whole thing. Audio of you admitting you've done this before in Atlanta. Video of you discussing fake pregnancies and divorce strategies. You really want to roll those dice? I could see her mind racing, trying to find another angle, another manipulation that might work. Even if you have recordings, you can't. I already sent copies to my lawyer and 2 friends with instructions to release everything if anything happens to me. So if you're thinking about trying to claim I threatened you or hit you or whatever, forget it. Jessica slumped down onto the couch, looking defeated for the first time since I'd known her. What do you want? I want you to stay away from me permanently. We're done, obviously. What else? You're going to pay me back every penny I spent on this security system. $2,800. I don't have that kind of money. Sell some of those designer handbags, and you're going to end whatever this is with Brad immediately. And if I do all that, you won't release the recordings? I won't release them to Brad's wife, but I'm keeping them. Insurance policy. She was quiet for a long time, probably calculating whether she had any other options. I need to call Brad, she finally said. Number. You need to end whatever this is with Brad immediately. He's married, he works with you, and he's been planning to destroy his family for this affair. If you're smart, you'll cut all contact before this gets worse. I left Jessica's apartment that day, thinking the worst was behind me. Sure, I'd been cheated on and manipulated, but I had evidence. I'd confronted her, and now I could move on with my life. I was so naive. Jessica did pay me back the $2,800, though it took her 4 months of installments. Had to sell half her designer crap to do it, which I'll admit felt pretty satisfying. She also broke things off with Brad, but not quietly. About a week after our confrontation, I got a call from my cousin Mike, the one whose wedding had started this whole mess. Dude, Jessica's been calling people, he said. She's telling everyone you secretly installed cameras to spy on her without her knowledge. Says you're some kind of controlling stalker who violated her privacy. My blood went cold. What exactly is she saying? That you hid cameras in her apartment and watched her remotely. She's making it sound like you were obsessed and paranoid, spying on her every move. This was bad. Really bad. My business depends entirely on trust and reputation. If word got around that I was secretly installing surveillance equipment to spy on romantic partners, it would destroy everything I'd built. She's also saying you threatened her when she tried to break up with you, Mike continued, making you sound dangerous. I thanked Mike for the heads up and immediately called the one lawyer I knew, a guy who'd handled my business incorporation. He told me I'd done nothing illegal since the cameras were installed with full consent and documentation, but advised me to get ahead of the narrative. That's when I made a decision that still makes me feel a little sick, but was absolutely necessary. I created a private folder with selected clips from the security footage. Nothing intimate or inappropriate, just clear evidence showing Jessica's full knowledge and consent for the camera system, her and Brad's affair over multiple days, audio of them discussing manipulation tactics and fake pregnancies, proof that she'd been planning to leave me while pretending to love me. I shared this folder with Mike and two other mutual friends who could vouch for me if Jessica's lies started spreading in our social circles. I don't want to embarrass Jessica, I told them. I just need to protect my reputation if she keeps spreading lies about me. The response was immediate and brutal. Holy shit, Danny, Mike said after reviewing the footage. This woman is psychotic. How long was this going on? Within a week, everyone in our extended friend group knew the real story. Jessica's narrative about being victimized by a controlling boyfriend fell apart when people saw actual evidence of her systematic manipulation and affair. But the real karma was still coming. For about 2 months, things seemed to settle down. Jessica stopped bad-mouthing me publicly, probably because she realized people had seen the evidence and knew she was lying. My business continued to grow, and I started dating again casually. Then Brad decided to get greedy. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Brad was telling people at his real estate office that he'd been seduced by a crazy woman who'd manipulated him into an affair. He was painting himself as the victim, claiming Jessica had lied to him about her relationship status and tricked him into sleeping with her. Apparently, Brad's story was that I was a psychotic ex-boyfriend who'd illegally recorded them and was now blackmailing them both. So I sent the recordings to his wife. Not out of spite, but because she deserved to know the truth about who she was married to. The audio clearly showed Brad as an enthusiastic participant in planning to destroy my relationship and discussing his own marriage with contempt. My wife has no idea how boring she's become, Brad said in one recording. All she cares about is the kids and her book club. Jessica makes me feel alive again. Brad's wife, Teresa, didn't just divorce him. She took everything. The house, the kids, half his income in alimony and child support. She also made sure everyone in their social circle knew exactly why their marriage ended. But it gets better. Teresa forwarded the recordings to Brad's employer, the same real estate company where Jessica worked. Turns out Brad had been using company resources to conduct his affair. Company phones, company credit cards for hotel rooms, even company-listed properties for their meetings. The real estate company fired both Brad and Jessica within a week. Brad for misusing company resources, and Jessica for conduct detrimental to company reputation. The affair had become massive office gossip. Jessica tried to get hired at other real estate agencies, but word travels fast in professional circles. Nobody wanted to hire someone with a reputation for sleeping with married coworkers and manipulating clients. Meanwhile, my business was thriving. Turns out when you focus on doing good work instead of dealing with toxic people, everything else falls into place. I hired 2 full-time employees and was booked solid through the following spring. I thought that was the end of the story. I was wrong. About 3 weeks ago, 8 months after the initial confrontation, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but figured it might be a potential client. Danny, it's me, it's Jessica. I nearly hung up immediately. We have nothing to talk about. Please, I'm in real trouble. I need your help. Not my problem anymore. Danny, please just give me 5 minutes. I'm desperate. Against every instinct I had, I listened. Turns out Jessica had tried to run her manipulation game on another guy, a plumbing contractor she'd met through work connections. But this guy was smarter than me, or maybe just more paranoid. He figured out what she was doing before she could spring her trap. Not only did he expose her to their mutual friends, he also reported her to the state real estate licensing board for using professional relationships to target clients for personal manipulation. The board was investigating her for ethics violations that could permanently revoke her license. I could lose everything, she said, and I could hear her crying. My license, my career, my apartment. I can't afford a lawyer for the investigation, and no one will hire me while it's pending. Still not my problem. Danny, I know I hurt you, but you're the only person who might help me. I'll do anything. Anything you want. Remember what you told Brad that night? About how I was just a glorified construction worker who would believe whatever you told me? Long pause. I was upset. I didn't mean it. Yeah, you did. You meant every word, just like you meant it when you bragged about doing this to other guys before me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was stupid and selfish and I ruined everything. You're not sorry you did it, Jess. You're sorry you got caught. That's not true. I really did love you. I still do. I actually laughed at that. You loved what I could provide. The security, the money, the free electrical work. You never loved me. I can change. I can be better. Just please, help me get through this investigation. No. And I hung up. Last I heard, Jessica lost her real estate license permanently. The investigation found she'd violated multiple ethics rules by using professional relationships to target men for personal manipulation. She's working at some chain restaurant now, making maybe a third of what she used to make. Brad's in even worse shape. His ex-wife made sure he'll never see his kids unsupervised, and his reputation in real estate is completely destroyed. Word is he's doing handyman work for cash and living in weekly motels. And me? I'm doing better than ever. My business is booming. I'm dating someone wonderful who thinks my job is honest work that makes the world safer. Imagine that. And I sleep well at night knowing everything I have was built through legitimate effort. Sometimes karma needs a little help, but when it finally comes around, it's beautiful to watch. The security cameras that were supposed to protect Jessica ended up protecting me instead. And the relationship these two tried to destroy led me to realize what I actually deserve in a partner. Life has a funny way of working out.